Good evening. They called him the chairman of the board. But do you remember the first song of his that made you fall in love? Was it My Way? Perhaps Fly Me to the Moon? Or maybe it was New York, New York that captured your heart? I want you to take a moment right now and share it with us in the comments below. Tell us your favorite Frank Sinatra song and what memory it brings back. Was it a first dance? A wedding? A quiet evening with someone special? Share it with our Starlight News Network family. We're listening. Tonight, we're going to tell you a story. Not just any story, but a true account of loyalty, courage, and the kind of friendship that changed the course of history. This is a story about a man who had everything to lose and nothing to gain, except the respect of his own conscience and the knowledge that he stood up for what was right when it mattered most. The year was 1959. Las Vegas was a different world back then. The desert city had transformed itself from a dusty railroad town into the entertainment capital of the world. The neon lights blazed against the dark Nevada sky like beacons calling to dreamers from every corner of America. The Sands Hotel stood proud on the Strip, its marquee announcing the biggest names in show business. The Rat Pack ruled those stages. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. They were more than entertainers. They were icons. They represented a new kind of American cool, a sophisticated blend of talent, charm, and that indefinable quality we call star power. But Las Vegas, for all its glittering promise, carried a dark secret in those days. Behind the velvet ropes and the champagne fountains, behind the showgirls and the slot machines, there existed an invisible line that divided people based on the color of their skin. It was the era of segregation, and even in this oasis of supposed freedom and excess, the old prejudices held firm. Picture this scene with me, if you will. It's late afternoon on the Strip. The desert sun is beginning its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The heat of the day is finally releasing its grip, and the evening crowd is starting to arrive. Cadillacs and Lincolns pull up to the hotel entrance, valets in crisp uniforms rushing to open doors for ladies in evening gowns and gentlemen in tailored suits. The smell of expensive perfume mingles with cigar smoke. Ice clinks in glasses of bourbon and scotch. The sound of laughter floats through the air, mixing with the distant melody of a piano warming up somewhere inside. Frank Sinatra was scheduled to perform that evening. The show was sold out, as it always was when Old Blue Eyes was headlining. People had traveled from Los Angeles, from San Francisco, even from as far as New York, just to see him perform. His voice, that magnificent instrument that could break your heart with a ballad or lift your spirits with a swing number, was at the peak of its powers. He commanded stages the way generals commanded armies. When Frank sang, the world stopped and listened. But Frank wasn't just a singer. He was a man of principle, raised in Hoboken, New Jersey by parents who taught him the value of loyalty and the importance of standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. His mother, Dolly, was a force of nature, a political organizer who helped immigrants in their neighborhood navigate the complexities of American life. She taught young Francis Albert that everyone deserved dignity, regardless of where they came from or what they looked like. That lesson stayed with him his entire life. On this particular afternoon, Frank arrived at the hotel with his friend and fellow Rat Pack member, Sammy Davis Jr. Now, Sammy was not just a talented performer, he was a phenomenon. He could sing, dance, act, play multiple instruments, and do impersonations that would leave audiences gasping with delight. He was, by any measure, one of the most gifted entertainers of the 20th century. And he was Frank's friend. Not his colleague, not his opening act, his friend. That distinction mattered deeply to Frank Sinatra. They pulled up to the main entrance together, stepping out of Frank's car into the warm Nevada evening. Frank was dressed impeccably as always, in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, and a thin tie that was the height of fashion. His fedora sat at just the right angle. Everything about him said confidence, success, and style. Sammy, equally well-dressed, wore a dark suit with a narrow lapel, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. They were talking and laughing about something, the easy camaraderie of two men who had shared stages, stories, and countless late nights together. As they approached the entrance, something shifted in the atmosphere. The doorman, a middle-aged man in a burgundy uniform with gold piping, stepped forward. His face showed the kind of discomfort that comes from having to enforce rules you might not personally agree with, but feel powerless to change. He looked at Frank and smiled, tipping his cap respectfully. Then his eyes moved to Sammy, and the smile faded. "Mr. Sinatra," he said, his voice apologetic but firm. "Welcome back to the Sands. We're so pleased to have you with us this evening. However, I'm afraid your guest will need to use the service entrance around back. Hotel policy, sir. I'm sure you understand." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun that had just been fired. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The laughter from the lobby faded. The clinking of glasses stopped. Even the desert breeze seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Frank's expression changed. Anyone who knew him, really knew him, would recognize that look. His blue eyes, usually sparkling with mischief or warmth, turned to ice. His jaw tightened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When Frank Sinatra was angry, truly angry, he became very, very quiet. "Excuse me," Frank said, his voice dangerously soft. "What did you just say?" The doorman swallowed hard, knowing that he had just stepped into something far bigger than his pay grade. "Sir, it's hotel policy. Colored guests aren't permitted to use the main entrance or stay in the main tower. There are accommodations in the annex, very nice accommodations, I'm told, and... Stop talking," Frank interrupted, still in that quiet, controlled tone. He turned to Sammy, whose face had settled into an expression of resigned disappointment. Sammy had faced this kind of treatment his entire life, in countless cities, at countless establishments. He knew the routine. He knew that even talent, even fame, even friendship with the biggest star in the world couldn't always break through those barriers. But Frank raised a hand, gently but firmly. "Don't," he said to Sammy, "don't you dare tell me this is okay." Then he turned back to the doorman. "Get me the manager, right now." Word traveled fast in those days, especially when Frank Sinatra's voice took on that particular edge. Within minutes, the hotel manager appeared, a portly man in an expensive suit with sweat already forming on his brow despite the air conditioning. He had that false smile that people in the hospitality industry perfect over years of dealing with difficult situations. But you could see the nervousness in his eyes. He knew exactly why Frank was upset, and he knew this wasn't going to be an easy conversation. "Mr. Sinatra," the manager began, extending his hand in greeting, which Frank ignored. "How wonderful to see you. I understand there's been a small misunderstanding. Let me assure you that your friend Mr. Davis is more than welcome here. We have lovely accommodations prepared for him in our West Annex, very private, very comfortable. Some of our most distinguished colored guests prefer it, actually. And of course, he's welcome to perform and to be backstage. We just ask that—" "No," Frank said simply. That one word carried the weight of absolute finality. The manager blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, sir?" "I said no. Here's what's going to happen. My friend Sammy is going to walk through that main entrance. He's going to get a suite. Not in some annex, not in some back building. He's getting the best suite in this hotel. He's going to eat in your restaurants. He's going to drink in your bars. He's going to swim in your pool and gamble in your casino and walk through any door he pleases. And nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to tell him otherwise. Is that clear?" The manager's face flushed red. You could see him calculating, weighing his options. On one side, there were the hotel's long-standing policies, the expectations of certain guests, the unwritten rules that governed Las Vegas in those days. On the other side stood Frank Sinatra, the biggest draw on the Strip, the man who could fill every seat in the house 3 shows a night, the star whose name on the marquee meant money, prestige, and sold-out rooms. "Mr. Sinatra," the manager said, trying to maintain his composure, "I understand your feelings. I truly do. But you have to understand our position. We have other guests to consider. Some of them come from places where they're not accustomed to mixing. We have contracts with you."
Yes, but we also have obligations to our other patrons and to our investors. Surely we can find a compromise that works for everyone. Mr. Davis can stay in the annex, which is really quite nice, and perhaps we can relax some of the other restrictions during your engagement. Would that be acceptable? Frank stared at him for a long moment. Then, without breaking eye contact, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was his contract with the hotel, the document that guaranteed him a small fortune for 2 weeks of performances. He unfolded it slowly, deliberately, holding it up so the manager could see it clearly. "You see this?" Frank asked. "This contract? This piece of paper that's worth a lot of money to both of us?" He paused, letting the weight of the moment build. "It's not worth the paper it's printed on, if it means I have to compromise my principles or abandon my friends." And then, in front of the manager, the doorman, the gathering crowd of hotel staff, and early arriving guests, Frank Sinatra tore the contract in half. The sound of ripping paper seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. He tore it again, into quarters, then into eighths, the pieces fluttering to the polished marble floor like confetti. "There's your contract," Frank said quietly. "If Sammy doesn't stay in this hotel, in a proper suite, with full access to every facility, then I don't sing. Not tonight, not tomorrow night, not ever in this establishment. And I'll make sure the Dean doesn't sing here either, or Joey, or Peter. And I'll tell every newspaper, every columnist, every radio station from here to New York exactly why. You want to explain to your investors why Frank Sinatra walked away from a sold-out engagement? You want to explain to the people who bought tickets tonight why there's no show? You want to see what happens to your business when word gets out that you chose segregation over entertainment?" The manager's face went from red to pale. You could almost see the mental arithmetic happening behind his eyes. The money from ticket sales, the prestige of having the Rat Pack, the potential publicity nightmare, the investors who had sunk millions into the hotel, the other hotels on the Strip who would be thrilled to book Frank if this one turned him away. Behind them, Sammy stood quietly, watching his friend fight a battle that Sammy had faced alone so many times before. There were tears in his eyes, though he was too proud to let them fall. He had endured prejudice his entire life. He had entered through back doors, eaten in separate dining rooms, used different bathrooms, stayed in different hotels, even when his name was on the marquee alongside the biggest stars in show business. He had endured it all with grace and humor, never letting the cruelty diminish his spirit or his talent. But watching Frank Sinatra, the biggest star in the world, literally tear up a contract and risk everything for him, that was something different. That was brotherhood. That was love. The manager looked around, perhaps hoping for support or guidance, but he found only watching eyes. Finally, he cleared his throat and straightened his jacket. "Mr. Sinatra," he said carefully, I believe we may have been operating under some outdated policies. I'll need to make some calls, but I think we can accommodate your request. Mr. Davis will have a suite in the main tower, the presidential suite, in fact. It's currently vacant, and he will, of course, have full access to all hotel facilities. Frank didn't smile. He didn't shake hands. He simply nodded once, a sharp, definitive movement. "That wasn't a request," he said, "but I'm glad we understand each other now." He turned to Sammy. "Come on, Charlie, let's get you checked into your suite." Together, they walked through that main entrance, through those doors that had been closed to people like Sammy since the hotel had opened. The crowd that had gathered parted before them, some faces showing approval, others showing shock or disapproval, but all showing respect. Because in that moment, everyone present had witnessed something remarkable. They had seen a man risk his career, his income, and his relationship with one of the most powerful establishments in Las Vegas, all for a simple principle, that his friend deserved to be treated with dignity. The story didn't end there, though. That evening, Frank Sinatra took the stage as scheduled. The showroom was packed, every table filled, every seat occupied. The audience had heard rumors of what happened that afternoon, and there was an electric anticipation in the air. When Frank walked out onto the spotlight, the applause was thunderous. He stood there for a moment, soaking it in, then raised his hand for quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice smooth as aged bourbon, "thank you for being here tonight. Before we start the show, I want to introduce you to someone. He's not just the greatest entertainer I ever known. He's not just a triple threat who can sing, dance, and act better than anyone in this business. He's my friend. And tonight, he's staying in the best suite in this hotel because that's where he belongs." He gestured to the wings, and Sammy Davis Jr. walked out to join him. The applause that followed wasn't just polite. It was genuine, warm, and sustained. And when Frank and Sammy sang together that night, performing duets they had done 100 times before, there was something extra in their voices. There was gratitude, there was respect, there was the sound of barriers breaking, and a new world beginning to emerge. Now let me tell you something about Frank Sinatra that you might not know. He didn't do these things for publicity. He didn't call press conferences to announce his stands against injustice. He didn't seek awards or recognition for fighting segregation. In fact, he rarely talked about these incidents at all. He simply believed that how you treat people, especially when nobody's watching, defines who you are. And he believed that friendship meant something. It meant standing up. It meant putting your money where your mouth was, quite literally. It meant being willing to lose something valuable to protect something invaluable. Over the years that followed, Frank continued to use his influence to break down racial barriers in Las Vegas and across the country. When he performed, he insisted on integrated audiences. When he stayed at hotels, he demanded that all his friends and colleagues, regardless of color, receive equal treatment. When clubs or venues refused, he simply refused to perform there, and his refusal carried weight. He cost himself money. He made powerful enemies. He faced criticism from some corners of the press and the public, but he never wavered. There's a beautiful irony in all of this. Frank Sinatra sang about doing things his way, and that's exactly how he lived. His way wasn't always the easy way. It wasn't always the popular way, but it was the right way, at least as he understood it. He had a moral compass that pointed north true, even when the winds of convention and prejudice tried to blow it off course. Sammy Davis Jr. later said that Frank Sinatra taught him what true friendship meant. In his autobiography, Sammy wrote about that day at the hotel, describing how it changed his understanding of loyalty. He said that Frank didn't just stand up for him. Frank stood with him, shoulder to shoulder, ready to walk away from everything if that's what it took. That's not just friendship. That's brotherhood. That was love. The impact of Frank's stand that day rippled outward in ways that are hard to measure but impossible to ignore. Other entertainers began making similar demands. Other hotels, seeing the economic and moral writing on the wall, began changing their policies. It wasn't immediate and it wasn't universal, but it was a beginning. And sometimes that's all it takes. One person with enough courage and enough influence to say no, not on my watch, not to my friend. One person to tear up a contract and walk away from a fortune on principle. Think about what that means in today's terms. Imagine a modern celebrity walking away from millions of dollars, from a guaranteed success, from the spotlight, all because an organization or venue was treating someone unfairly. It's rare, it's remarkable, and it reminds us that true character isn't revealed when everything is going well. It's revealed in moments of choice, when standing up costs you something real. Frank Sinatra lived by a code. It wasn't written down anywhere, it wasn't taught in schools, but it was as real and as binding as any law. The code said, you protect your friends, you keep your word, you fight for what's right, even when it's hard. You don't back down from bullies, whether they wear hoods or business suits. You use whatever power you have to make the world a little more just, a little more fair, a little more kind. He wasn't perfect, mind you. Frank had his flaws, as all humans do. He had a temper. He could be stubborn. He made mistakes in his personal life, as we all do. But when it came to loyalty, when it came to standing up for his friends, when it came to fighting against injustice, he was uncompromising. And that's what we choose to remember and celebrate tonight. The voice. Oh, that
magnificent voice. Could make you feel things you didn't know you could feel. It could transport you to another time, another place. It could make you fall in love or help you heal a broken heart. But the man behind the voice, the man with the fedora and the tuxedo and those piercing blue eyes, he could inspire you to be better, to stand taller, to fight harder for what you believe in. When Frank Sinatra passed away in 1998, the world mourned. Presidents issued statements. Fellow entertainers shared their memories. Radio stations played his music non-stop. But the most moving tributes came from people like Sammy Davis Jr., who had passed away 8 years earlier, but who spent his final years telling anyone who would listen about the day Frank Sinatra tore up a contract for him, about the day friendship proved stronger than fear, and loyalty proved more valuable than money. We live in complicated times, don't we? We live in an era where divisions seem deeper, where conversations about race and justice and equality can feel overwhelming and exhausting. Sometimes it seems like the problems are too big, too entrenched, too difficult to solve. But then I think about Frank Sinatra standing in that hotel lobby, tearing up that contract, and I remember that change doesn't always come from grand gestures or sweeping legislation, though those are important too. Sometimes change comes from individual acts of courage, from one person saying, "This is wrong, and I won't be part of it." From one person valuing friendship and principle over profit and convenience. Frank didn't solve segregation single-handedly. He didn't end racism, but he moved the needle. He opened doors, literally and figuratively. He showed that it was possible to use fame and influence for something beyond personal gain. He demonstrated that loyalty isn't just a word you use in songs or movies. It's an action. It's a choice you make again and again, even when it costs you. Tonight, as we remember this story, as we celebrate this moment in history, I want you to think about your own life. Think about the times you've had to choose between what's easy and what's right. Think about the friendships that have sustained you, the people who have stood by you when times were tough. And ask yourself, are you willing to stand by them? Are you willing to tear up your own contracts, whatever they might be, to defend the dignity of someone you care about? Frank Sinatra sang, "I did it my way," and those words became his epitaph and his legacy. But his way wasn't selfish. His way wasn't about ego or pride, at least not in the negative sense. His way was about integrity, about knowing who you are and what you stand for, and then standing for it, no matter the cost. The Rat Pack, that legendary group of entertainers, represented something special in American culture. They represented cool, certainly. They represented talent and style, and that indefinable quality we call charisma. But they also represented something deeper, the idea that true friendship transcends barriers. When Frank, Dean, Sammy, Peter, and Joey took the stage together, they weren't just performing. They were making a statement. They were showing America what brotherhood could look like at a time when America desperately needed to see it. And it all started with moments like that afternoon at the hotel, with Frank refusing to accept the unacceptable, with Frank insisting that his friend deserved better, and being willing to sacrifice his own interests to make sure he got it. You know, there's a recording of Frank and Sammy performing together in the 1960s, and if you listen closely, you can hear something special in their voices. You can hear the respect they have for each other. You can hear the genuine affection. You can hear the history they shared together, the battles they fought together, the stages they've conquered side by side. It's not just music. It's a document of friendship, preserved forever in sound. In a world that often divides us, that encourages us to see our differences before our similarities, Frank Sinatra brought people together. His music brought people together. But more than that, his actions, his choices, his willingness to stand up for what was right, those things brought people together. He showed that you could be tough and tender, strong and compassionate, successful and principled. The lesson of that day at the hotel isn't complicated. It's not subtle. It's crystal clear. When you see injustice, speak up. When your friends are hurting, stand with them. When institutions demand you compromise your values, refuse. And be willing to accept the consequences, whatever they might be. Frank Sinatra didn't need to tear up that contract. He could have made excuses. He could have gone along with the system. He could have told Sammy, "Sorry, pal, that's just how things are." Many people in his position would have done exactly that. But Frank wasn't like many people. He was special. Not because of his voice, though that was extraordinary, but because of his heart. Tonight, as you go about your evening, as you talk with your family, as you think about the stories we've shared here at Starlight News Network, I want you to remember Frank's example. I want you to remember that one person can make a difference, that loyalty matters, that friendship is sacred, that standing up for what is right is never a waste of time or energy, even when it's difficult, even when it's costly. The chairman of the board, Old Blue Eyes, the voice, Frank Sinatra had many names and many accomplishments. He sold millions of records. He won countless awards. He performed for presidents and kings. But perhaps his greatest legacy isn't captured in gold records or Grammy Awards. Perhaps his greatest legacy is the example he set of what it means to be a true friend, a loyal companion, a person of principle in a world that often rewards compromise and convenience. Sammy Davis Jr. called Frank Sinatra the best friend he ever had. Coming from a man who knew many people, who worked with countless celebrities, who moved in the highest circles of entertainment and society, that's a remarkable statement. And it was based on moments like the one we've shared tonight. Moments when Frank could have looked the other way, but chose to look the injustice straight in the eye and say, "No more." Do you think we need more people like him today? Do you think we need more people willing to tear up contracts, literal or figurative, to stand up for their friends and for what's right? I think we do. I think the world is hungry for that kind of courage, that kind of loyalty, that kind of unwavering commitment to principle over profit. Frank Sinatra did it his way, and his way made the world, one hotel lobby at a time, one torn contract at a time, one act of friendship at a time. He showed us that you don't have to be a politician or an activist to fight injustice. You just have to be willing to stand up, speak out, and accept the consequences of choosing right over easy. So tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to do something for me. Put on your favorite Frank Sinatra song. Let that magnificent voice fill your home. Close your eyes and remember a time when entertainment was about more than just making money, when stars used their platform for good, when friendship meant something real and deep and lasting. And then, when the song is over, ask yourself, what contract am I willing to tear up? What comfort am I willing to sacrifice? What stand am I willing to take? Because that's the true tribute to Frank Sinatra's legacy. Not just remembering the story, but living the lesson. Not just admiring his courage, but finding our own. Not just celebrating his loyalty, but practicing it in our own lives. The voice may be silent now, but the example remains. The man may be gone, but the legacy endures. And as long as we remember stories like this one, as long as we tell them to our children and grandchildren, as long as we let them inspire us to be better, braver, and more loyal, Frank Sinatra's spirit will continue to make a difference in this world. He did it his way, and his way made all the difference. This has been Starlight News Network, bringing you stories that matter, memories that last, and lessons that endure. Join us next time when we'll share another tribute to the legends who shaped our culture and our values. Perhaps we'll talk about John Wayne's quiet acts of heroism, or Audrey Hepburn's humanitarian work, or another chapter in the remarkable lives of those golden age stars who gave us so much more than just entertainment. Until then, keep their memories alive. Keep their lessons close to your heart. And remember, in a world that often divides us, that encourages us to see our differences before our similarities, the greatest gift we can give ourselves and others is the courage to stand up, speak out, and do what's right, no matter the cost. Good night, and God bless.